John Hook's Newsmaker starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker this Saturday. I'm Ellen McNamara in for John Hook, who right now is traveling to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. In a moment, you will hear his interview with a member of our state's delegation ahead of the convention. But first, it is just about fall, and that means that football is back. The D-backs, they are red hot, so we are hoping for another postseason run. Well, the best person to talk about all things sports is our own Richard Saenz. So he is here. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad you're here too.
Okay, so we want to start before the D-backs. Let's talk about the Cardinals because obviously, you know, they've been working out, had some preseason games. Jonathan Gannon, it's his second season.
Right.
How do you feel like the coaching staff is kind of settling in this second season? Because the first one, it can be, you can't really judge really your first season.
Yeah, exactly. It's a feeling out process, and you can tell the culture has changed for the Arizona Cardinals, that's for sure. People are being held accountable. There's a certain standard that now players have to meet, and you can even tell by the players that they are drafting. They are always like, team captains, big time programs, team first guys, and it's starting to show and it's starting to rub off on the guys that were there, and then you can see when guys have left, right? If you're not with the program, you're gone, and you've seen a lot of turnover, a lot of changes for the Arizona Cardinals, but one guy I think has changed is Kyler Murray. You can kind of tell he's becoming a leader, and he's doing the right things. He's saying the right things. He took everybody in the offseason, a bunch of the receivers, to the LA area, and they all worked out on their own, and that's what leaders do. And also, he fit the bill, and that's what players like too. So you can see that these guys really care about each other, and that's the start of a good team, and you see it with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, you definitely need to gel, regardless of whether you're playing football or baseball or whatever. Yeah, oh my gosh, the D-backs, are you kidding me?
I know. Yeah.
I mean, wow, they are just red hot. The guys seem to be healthy now once again. Do you feel like there is another postseason run, a long one potentially for these guys?
Absolutely, and that's the great thing about this particular run as opposed to last year. They kind of snuck up on us. Last year we're like, well, they're going to be better, maybe the playoffs. This year you're like, look, this team is a playoff team, but then they had all the injuries, and they kept saying, well, let's just weather the storm. Let's just keep it close till the All-Star break when all these guys come back. Well, the pitchers are back, right? You got Jordan Montgomery, you got Merrill Kelly, you got Zach Gallen back, but they're still winning without Christian Walker, Ketel Marte's out, Gabby Moreno's out, Alec Thomas got sent down to the minors, and they're still winning. If Torey Lovullo does not win Manager of the Year this year, I don't know what's going on, because I think this has been the best job he's done as a manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks, considering all the injuries.
It's been so fun to watch Torey and see his success, going to the All-Star game and whatnot, and just the way that he's able to bring it out of guys and to make them perform and be motivated, day in and day out. It says a lot about him. Yeah,
you got to give him credit, and you got to give GM Mike Hazen credit. He's gone and made some really good trades. You lose Christian Walker, you bring in Josh Bell, and when they got him, I was like, oh wow, Josh Bell, he's a big-time player. He's played in some big games, and he's come through in clutch moments, and he's been fantastic so far. And he's a switch hitter. He can be a DH. Jacques Peterson was a great pickup as well. So Mike Hazen's pushed all the right buttons so far.
Yeah, they're making the right chess moves, right now. They are. All right, ASU football, obviously, that's a big change, too.
Right.
We're talking Big 12 now.
I know.
I'm a Big 12 girl.
Texas
I grew up
Tech,
in Big
Red
12.
Raiders,
And I'm excited. I love the Big 12, and I think this is a great move. I mean, honestly, they really had no choice. You had to get into some kind of conference, right? How are you feeling about the Big 12 and to see ASU? Do you think they can do well in this conference?
It kind of reminds me of the Arizona Cardinals, where the culture's changing there too. Kenny Dillingham, has done a great job in kind of adding some excitement, into this program. He got Camp T. They just came back from there, and he pushes these kids. And Sam Levitt seems to be pushing himself and separating himself as the #1 quarterback for the Sun Devils. It's going to be some growing pains. It's going to be a slower process than it is with the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to have another rough year, but they're trending in the right direction. And when it comes to the Big 12, that's great. The Big 12 is on Fox. We love that.
Yeah.
And, Kenny Dillingham recruits Texas already heavily, and I think that's going to help him in the Big 12.
And two, selling the Valley. I mean, you can easily sell the Valley, especially in the fall and the winter here. And I think kids from Texas would want to come here and play.
Right, and when you got Hines Ward, a former Super Bowl MVP for the Pittsburgh Steelers, as your wide receivers coach, a guy that's been there and done that, that's saying something. That says, when a guy like that wants to come work for and with Kenny Dillingham, that lets you know what kind of character Kelly Dillingham has too.
Yeah, and these QBs you were talking about, so Sam Levitt,
Right.
Michigan State transfer,
Exactly.
and Jeff Sims, he played at Georgia Tech and Nebraska.
Right.
That's the reality of college football.
Right.
I mean, college sports in general is that
Yes.
kids are going to be bouncing around pretty much every year
I
if
know.
they're not happy.
It's like free agency, and that's what I think makes Trent Bourget, the other quarterback for the Arizona State Sun Devils, so special, because he's never wavered, and he's from Marana, he's from the Tucson area, and to come here and be a Sun Devil through and through and stay and not transfer after he was put as a starter, then he was benched, and now he's got to fight for a position. It was really cool to see. I was up at Camp T, and a lot of the fans were passing around a card, and I'm like, what is that? And it had, TB 16, his initials and his number, and they were thanking him. And they held it up, and because they said, look, like you mentioned with the transfer portal, it's hard to get to know these kids because they're here one year and they're gone the next.
Yeah.
So it's been cool to see a guy like Trent Bourget be so loyal to the program, because that is rare nowadays, for sure.
A lot of success. We got to talk basketball too. The
Yes.
Olympics just wrapped up. Team USA, wow.
I
I
know.
mean, you talk about D Book, you talk about Kevin Durant, and then for the women, Brittany Griner and
Right.
Diana Taurasi
Yeah.
bringing home the gold medal.
Yeah, and Kalea Copper too.
Yes,
So it was cool to have such a local flavor for both the men's and the women's team, and to see the passion that these guys had and the joy that Kevin Durant was playing with, and then all the kudos that Devin Booker's been getting from people outside of Team USA. Were like, he was the MVP, and it was really cool to see, because all these guys are alpha dogs, right?
Yes.
They're all the main guys on their team, and to see some of the guys like a Devin Booker say, okay, if you want me to the guy that plays defense and spots up in the corner and shoots threes, I'll do that, whatever you need. And then to see that final game, those last two games were amazing. And the future of the NBA is bright when you see all these other players from other countries that are now in the NBA.
Yeah.
Serbia, France, Victor Wembanyama. That kid's 20.
Wow.
He's coming, Ellen.
Yeah.
He's
And
coming.
that gold medal game was phenomenal.
Steph
and
Curry was.
Yes, on
Yeah.
fire, and then seeing Wemby. I mean, they're going up against
I know.
him too. There was a lot going on,
Yeah.
and a lot to love about what you were seeing on the court.
Right.
Diana Taurasi, that's another storyline, because
know.
I mean, she really teared up, at the Olympics. Her parents really teared up too, because they realized, this is probably her last Olympics.
Sure.
Maybe she'll be a coach one day,
Right,
who
right.
knows. But the reality is she's going to be retiring soon.
It is a bit of a farewell tour feeling, right? You kind of saw her get emotional at the WNBA All-Star game here, when she was the last one introduced, and she did the X, and she kind of had a moment with the fans there, because the fan base for the Mercury have been fantastic from day one. And it's funny, like I'm trying to appreciate Diana Taurasi as much as I can now.
Yeah.
Because like when Steve Nash was here and he was the back-to-back MVP, I don't know if I really realized the greatness that I was witnessing.
Yeah.
Because he was fantastic, and I look back at those highlights, and I'm like, man, that was so. I got to see that every day.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to soak it all in with Diana Taurasi, because she's the most decorated women's basketball player ever. She's the GOAT.
Yeah, the amount of Olympic teams that she's been on
Yeah.
is pretty unreal. And also just the Phoenix Mercury too, what Matt Ishbia has done for the organization. I saw the locker room and I was going, sign me up for that. I mean, it was mind-blowing,
Yeah.
the facilities that they have now. It's obviously not like college sports, but it kind of is, in a sense that organizations are pumping money now, and they see the benefit, right? And Matt Ishbia obviously sees the benefit of making his team happy.
Yeah,
And
he
you
gets
see, I mean, kind of like Mark Cuban did that,
Yes.
with the Dallas Mavericks, like
Yes.
way back when. He gave all the boys, I say again,
Yeah.
all the athletes, like video game consoles, and that
Yes.
was like 20
Yeah.
years ago. But he knew that you make the players happy and you'll have success.
And there's no excuse. I remember the Mavericks is a great example. I remember I went to cover them. The Suns were playing in the playoffs, and we had to go into their locker room. And I remember like looking around like, these lockers are bigger. And they had a monitor in each player had a monitor, not only the video game console, but a replay of the game the night before. Like you want to watch film, it's there. There's no excuse for you not to watch film.
What are you most looking forward to this fall? I mean, you get to cover. You have the front seat to everything that's happening with Phoenix
know.
sports. What are you looking forward to the most?
The sports equinox, when everything is going on at the same time, right? It's great. When October gets here, the weather's cooler. You got NFL football, you got Big 12 football, you got the D-backs in the postseason. I can't wait. Can you tell I love my job or what? It beats working for a living, I'll tell you that. That's for sure.
It does.
So yeah, when all the sports are going, and then we got a winner in the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I think the Cardinals are going to surprise some people. I think the Sun Devils are going to play a little bit better this year, so it's going to be fun, and that's the great thing about this time of year. Everybody has these hopes and these dreams, and it's fun to see how it develops.
Yeah, and the Cardinals, they got a Monday night game, which they haven't had a Monday night game in a while, so obviously the league sees the potential too. Richard, thank you so much for everything you do. We love it. Great catching up with you as always. And coming up here on Newsmaker, John Hook will have his interview with a Democratic delegate from the Valley who will be in Chicago for the upcoming Democratic National Convention.
Welcome back on Newsmaker. Next week, the Democrat National Convention gets underway in Chicago in some of the most extraordinary political circumstances imaginable. A candidate switch, Harris for Biden at the top of the ticket, a mere 2 months before early voting begins in a number of critical states. Former state lawmaker Lorenzo Sierra will be there. He is part of the Arizona delegation. Arizona's got 85 delegates, 6 alternates. Lorenzo, great to see you. And I know you've had some health scares in the past 4 years, and you seem to be doing really well.
Thank you, John. I am doing fabulously well. I couldn't be better, and just excited about our future.
That's great. Okay, Chicago. You know the history. The last time I was there, it was Clinton Gore in '96, the re-election for Bill Clinton. That was pretty benign. 1968 was a different matter. Do you think this convention will look more like '96 or '68?
I think it's going to look exactly like 2024. We are in uncharted territory in terms of having a candidate switch, in terms of having 2 Gen X candidates, having 2 people who were middle class people that have worked their way up through the political system. So I think this is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. When you look at just the enthusiasm that's going on right now with the Democratic Party, this is going to be a spectacle like none other, a good spectacle, that is, not anything that resembles '68, or not as
Uneventful.
Uneventful as '96. But I think the Democratic Party is going to show the world just how excited we are about this ticket.
Can you give me just a thumbnail of your emotions in the last 2 weeks when this switch happened? Because Democrats were frankly morose at what looked like a wipeout coming in November. I don't know that it would have been like that, but give me the swing of emotions you've experienced.
John, I think my hair was black a month ago. You know what? I saw that debate like everyone else, and here is a man that in Joe Biden, that I have come to respect in just profound ways in the work that he's done over the course of his life, and to see that struggle that he had during that debate. I remember just being really sad after that. And then, just hearing the pundits saying, hey, this race is over, having to do that. And then the day that he announced he was going to step aside, he has a very personal connection to my family. When I was on the ventilator with COVID, he called my wife to let her know that he and the First Lady were praying for me while I was sick. So I told people I'm always going to be loyal to Joe Biden because he never gave up on me, and I didn't want to give up on him. So I remember that day being very sad. But then once it was announced that he was backing Vice President Harris, you could feel something changing. And then you looked at just how much money she was raising, how many people were signing up to volunteer. And next thing you know, all those people that were morose Where now, where do I sign up? Where can I help? How many doors can I knock? How much money can I give? I've not seen this sort of enthusiasm since 2008 when Barack Obama was having his first
Yeah,
race.
I keep hearing that. This had to be personally agonizing for you because you just laid out your personal connection to Joe Biden, who I know you have great affection for. But you were also one of 4 Arizonans named to Biden's National Latino Leadership Committee in the 2020 presidential race. And then toward the end, after that debate, I think you were one of the ones who said he needs to step aside. How agonizing was that for you?
So I never would have said that publicly. And in fact, on some meetings that I was on, I tended to be the only person who was still defending the president. And had he stayed in the race, I'd still be defending him to this day. But when he made that decision, that was one of the most selfless acts I've ever seen from an American politician. Just to think about how hard it is to get to that position in politics, and for him to have served so nobly, to have had so many just monumental achievements in his last 3 3/4 years, just to see how much he has done, and then for him to realize and to have the self-awareness to say, if we're going to win this, if we're going to make sure that our country's moving forward, I need to step aside. That is so hard, whether it's sports, whether it's politics, when you're playing at the highest levels, knowing when to say goodbye is just a really, really hard thing. And I just admire him so much for having the courage to step aside.
Now you're aware of all this reporting that he was forced out. He was, people pushed him out, including some of the reporting is that former President Obama had a big role in that. Nancy Pelosi may have had a big role in that. Are you okay with that? I mean, do you think these are conversations that had to be had? Pardon the grammar.
Sometimes you look at processes and you think, I don't know that I would have done it that way. But you look at the result of where we're at now, and I'll take where we're at now over any process that would have gotten us here. And that is that level of enthusiasm we have for the ticket that's before us now, with just the passion that's going on amongst the electorate that I haven't seen in a long time. I will take this over whatever the process was that got us over here.
Are you a football fan?
Big football fan.
Okay, you know the Vince Lombardi line, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Is that where we are right now?
You want to win properly. You want to win the right way. You want to win because you are voting for something, not against something. And I think in the last election, Americans by and large were saying, we've had enough of the chaos, we've had enough of the division, and we are going to go with this man who has given a lifetime of service. And during this service here, it just happened that he may not have been fully ready to take on this election and the next 4 years. But I have no doubt that he's going to fill out the remainder of his term with honor, with dignity, and probably a couple more achievements on top of what he's already done.
One more process question. You had these primaries, and I covered them in Iowa and New Hampshire. You've got, let's see, what do you have? 3,900 delegates in Chicago. Almost all of them voted for Joe Biden. They're Joe Biden delegates. Is there any reticence on the part of the party that, this guy earned this, we kind of took it away from him? How do you reconcile all of that?
Ultimately, it was Joe Biden that decided, I'm going to step out of this race. Kamala Harris's name was also on that ticket. So you were voting for the ticket in that primary. We have since gone through the process of the delegates assigning those votes to Kamala Harris. So the delegates that have voted are now voting for Kamala Harris. In terms of all of the people that voted during the primaries, they voted for the ticket. We still have half of that ticket, so it's not like it was a bait and switch or by any stretch of the imagination. this is the team that we have now, and I couldn't be more excited for this team.
Lorenzo, quick question about kind of the temperature on the Palestinian question. There's a lot of concern, and people keep saying that Chicago could really be a hotbed for trouble. Has the delegation been kind of prepped for that possibility? And is it something you worry about?
So as a member of the Credentials Committee, we were tasked with looking at the credentials of everyone who was put forth as a voting delegate. And we felt that all of those people were going to stay true to their vote, that were going to stay true to the ticket, and so far they have. In terms of what's going to happen, protest is the most American thing you can do. Protesting for something you're passionate about should always be part of the American equation. So if those people want to protest because they feel passionately about that, it's my duty as someone in the community to give that a listen, to try to understand where they're coming from. Now, at the same time, I would ask them to be respectful and not to disrupt the proceedings at hand, but understanding that you have a choice between an administration in Harris Walls that will listen to them and an administration with Trump that probably wouldn't give them a moment of his time.
Lorenzo, a little bit about what we're going to see next week. You've got Joe Biden, I understand, will speak Monday night. You'll obviously have the vice president, presidential nominee, Tim Walz, on Wednesday night, and then you get Kamala Harris traditionally on the final night on Thursday night. Who else? Do we know anybody from the Arizona delegation of the politicos who may have a speaking role at this convention? I've got to believe Mark Kelly's going to be in the mix.
So far, I have not heard who is speaking, and I don't know that that has been released as of yet. But I have to imagine with Arizona's position as a swing state, we're going to see some familiar faces there. We've got just a deep bench of talented individuals who are representing us at the school board level, at city level, in the state legislature, and our statewide delegation is mostly Democrats at this point. We have a deep, deep bench, so it would not surprise me at all to see several Arizona faces up on that stage.
I would expect that as well. Yeah. Finally, I'm not sure how many of these you've been to. Were you at 96 in Chicago? That may be before your time.
I think I was still doing a little bit of college at that point.
See, I'm aging myself. Okay.
I did 2020.
Okay.
But that was all virtual.
Right.
So I was the delegate whip that year, and making calls to everybody, making sure that they were going to be on the Zoom. So it wasn't like I was trying to get people into the hall. I was trying to make sure everyone that needed to be on the Zoom at a specific time got there. So it was a virtual convention, and this will be my first in-person convention, and just very excited because my wife will be there with me, and already making plans to see so many friends there.
What do you think the overarching message will be at the convention?
That when we fight, we win, and we are not going backwards. That's going to be the overarching theme that you're going to hear throughout the week. It is going to be a celebration of what the possibilities of America can be. And I just look forward to being there with all the enthusiasm, with everyone so fired up. It's going to be amazing to be there, and can't wait to get there.
Well, I'm going to see you there. I want to plug your book. You've got a book you're working on, Fight Like Hell, Love, Politics, and the Will to Live, which is set to be released next year. Is that still on track?
That's still on track. It is about, my wife and I went through some very challenging health issues, and all of this happened in the shadow of American history, whether it was the 2016 election with her late-stage cancer fight, or my fight with COVID at the end of the 2020 election. It seemed to be that we ended up having to live those things, with the community's eye on us. So wanted to share with the community just how much they meant to us as we fought those things, and how they fought alongside with us.
Lorenzo, thank you very much for your time, and we will get together in Chicago. Deal?
Absolutely.
Okay. Lorenzo Sierra, former Arizona State Representative. He was on the Avondale City Council before that, served in the Maricopa Association of Governments, MAG. He's been around. He knows what he's doing. Lorenzo, thank you again, and we're back in a minute on Newsmaker.
Thanks for joining us for Newsmaker. I'm Ellen McNamara.